The underdog boxer who saved the world when fists triumph over magic. Like, share and subscribe. Episode 1. I want to turn to boxing practice. Human world, Tianshui City. In the living room of a cabin. A young man and an old man were sitting on the sofa. In front of them was a 3D projector, which was playing battle scenes of various professions. The old man's name is Li Tang. At this moment, he was staring at the projection screen and said plausibly, sword cultivators, after changing professions, you will gain the ability to grow your sword, dexterity, speed, and killing power. It depends on your personal preferences. Boxing cultivators of the same level will not be able to compete with sword cultivators. Hit. Then, the screen flashed again. Li Tang continued, gun cultivator, the god of war on the battlefield. After changing his profession, he gained a spear spirit. Fighting as a boxing cultivator is like an eagle catching chickens. Then, the picture continued to change. Fire cultivator, the most common profession in the human world, you can get a random fire after changing professions. Hexagonal warriors, and their employment scope is extremely wide. Whether they are alchemists, weapon refiners, or other lucrative professions, they all need fire cultivators. No matter from any angle, they are 10,000 times stronger than boxing cultivators. Li Tang became more and more excited as he spoke, but Yan beside him looked sleepy, as if he wasn't listening at all. At this time, Li Tang adjusted the screen again, shook Yan, and said, look. This is the career that's best for you. Battlefield strategist, also known as military strategist, is now simply called war strategist. This is a job transfer with a very high threshold. After the job transfer, there will be a powerful war strategist who will give you a wonderful inheritance. You have 3 years more battlefield experience than your peers, and your talent mainly lies in mental power, which is completely enough to pass the threshold of a combat strategist. If you choose to change your career as a combat strategist, your future will be limitless. Have you considered? Which career do you want to change to? Li Tang stared at Yan. He had been brainwashing Yan for 3 hours. It must be effective. But Yan replied without hesitation, fist cultivator. Fuck. The gray-haired Li Tang cursed, clutching his chest and almost losing his breath. What is the profession of boxing cultivator? It's the kind of profession that's about to become extinct. In today's world, boxing practitioners have no career path other than playing exhibition matches in the octagon. In life, what kind of work can your fists do? Who doesn't have fists? On the battlefield, no general wants to have a boxing cultivator in his team. A row of gun repairmen, a row of mechanics, a row of sword repairmen, and a row of fire repairmen, perfect. What do you want a boxing cultivator with a negative attack range to do? Li Tang said sincerely, even ordinary people know that no matter how skilled you are still afraid of the kitchen knife. A profession like boxing cultivator, which has no attack range, is a disabled person compared to other professions. You have been on the battlefield. Have you ever seen a boxing cultivator on the battlefield? Or have you ever seen a boxing cultivator in your life? Or have you seen it on the Star Network? There is no room for boxing cultivators to survive in this world. The top brass in the human world are already considering canceling this job transfer. Suddenly, Yan said seriously, of course I know how much Quan Xiao is despised by people in this era. But this situation is not going to happen for a day or two. The human world has yet to cancel the job transfer of boxing cultivator. This shows that boxing cultivator must have his own merits. That's one of them. Second. I think every profession represents a track. The more people choose this profession, the more opponents you will have. The circuits in those professions you're talking about are crowded. I choose boxing, and no one competes with me for resources. How nice. After hearing Yan's logic, Li Tang laughed angrily, you are really a little genius. No one chooses your profession, not because you are powerful or rare, but because it is useless. But Yan was still stubborn and resolutely chose boxing practice. Every child in the human world has his talent fully formed by the age of 12. So everyone will take a talent test when they are 12 years old. Although there are millions of types of talents in this world, almost none of them can be separated from 3 major categories: element, body, and spirit. For example, Yan's talent is called dream, and its activation source is spiritual power. Therefore, after he turned 12 years old, he could choose to train his mental power and become a rare and powerful mind master. If you have a physical talent, you will become a martial artist. If it was an elemental talent, it would be an elemental master. After the age of 18, everyone has a deep understanding of their own power, and it is time to change jobs. For example, a martial artist can change his profession to a swordsman, spearman, archer, etc. Elemental masters can change their profession to fire cultivators, water cultivators, earth cultivators, etc. Ideologists can change their jobs to become strategic strategists, psychologists, and perform various mental tasks, etc. After changing jobs, you will gain the power of changing jobs, and different jobs have different rewards. When the attainment is deep enough, you can also undergo a second transformation until you finally become a person of your own and become the kind of powerful person who can connect with the gods. Yi En's talent is a dream, a very spiritual talent that defies heaven. He can train alone in the dream and create opponents, which is equivalent to having his own martial arts field, and the effects after training will be fed back into the real world. Doing 100 push-ups in his dream will have the same effect as doing 100 push-ups outside. Moreover, the flow of time in the dream is 10 times slower than outside. A day for other people is 24 hours, but Yi En's day is 240 hours. Until today, 6 years later, Yi En further developed his talent. His dreams can overshadow the real world, making everything in his eyes slow down 10 times, but he himself is also slowed down. But anyone who has played competitive games or competitive sports knows how incredible this power is. For example, penalty kicks in football. After starting his dream, the world slowed down 10 times in Yi En's eyes. He had 10 times more time to think about where the opponent's goalkeeper would kick. What an amazing gift. In Li Tang's eyes, Yi En is a natural war strategist. When he reaches a later stage of growth and overlooks the battlefield on the Great Wall, making everything slow down in his eyes, he can easily see through the enemy's flaws, conspiracies, etc. What a perfect choice. But he had to choose a loser like boxing cultivator to change his profession. Moreover, this is a career change for a martial artist. Yi En, you are a mind master. The power of job transfer conflicts with your own talent. Li Tang has been persuading him for a whole year. He couldn't help it. He looked at Yi En angrily and said, "You have to choose boxing cultivation and screw up everything about yourself, right?" Yi En's eyes were firm and he said, "I have a reason why I must choose boxing." What a bullshit reason. Li Tang stood up with difficulty, his calves making a mechanical sound. He stared straight at Yi En and asked, "Is it because of your father?" Yi En lowered his head and remained silent. Li Tang's tone suddenly rose, "Tell me, is that right?" Episode 2, The Supreme Fist. Facing Li Tang's questioning, Yi En remained silent for 2 seconds, and then said, "This is part of the reason." "Okay." Li Tang's tone suddenly rose, and he said, "Then I'll tell you now. Why does my leg look like this? Why did your parents die on the battlefield 8 years ago? Just because your father is that useless boxer. If he's a gunsmith, a swordsman. With his talent, it's absolutely impossible to lose that day. I don't have to go to save them and become like this. And even though I paid such a high price, I still couldn't save your parents. The reason for everything is because your father is a boxing cultivator. Hear this." Yi En clenched his hands fiercely, his breathing became rapid and his cheeks turned red. Li Tang didn't care at all, stared at Yi En and said, "Okay. You are not my son. Choose whatever career you want. But I tell you, don't wait until your beloved dies, because of your incompetence, and then you come to me crying and say you regret it." After saying that, Li Tang turned around fiercely, grabbed the projector in front of him, and limped toward the door. Then he slammed the door and walked to the parking lot to drive home. But when he sat in the car and held the steering wheel, his body suddenly softened. Li Tang seemed to have thought of something and opened the cabinet in the passenger seat. Thick dust rolled out. A pair of rusty gauntlets lay quietly inside. "Laoli, do you know? I think boxing is the greatest romance for a man." Yi En's high-spirited laughter rang in Li Tang's ears. "He looks almost exactly the same as Yi En, even his personality is very similar. The same confidence. Just as proud." Sometimes Li Tang really feels sad and ridiculous. Yi En chose boxing cultivation because he thought it was very romantic. He knew that boxing cultivators were weaker than other transfer classes. So handsome. Being strong is temporary, being handsome is a lifelong thing. Alright. Now you are so handsome. Are you satisfied? Li Tang angrily slapped the cabinet, slammed the cabinet, and finally stepped on the accelerator, leaving Yi En's home amidst the roar of the engine. Open halfway. Li Tang suddenly made up his mind. It doesn't matter even if Yi En hates him. On the day he chooses to change jobs, he must knock Yi En unconscious and help him make the choice. He doesn't want to send people with white hair to people with black hair anymore. At the same time, the basement of Yi En's house. It was dark and empty, filled with sandbags and various cold boxing equipment. Yi En was naked from the waist up and wearing boxing gloves. He sat on the chair with an expressionless expression and stared at the sandbag in front of him. A family photo hangs on the wall behind the sandbags. Mom, Dad, grandparents, and him, 5 people. My grandma passed away when I was a child. When I was 10 years old, my parents died in the war. 6 months ago, my grandfather also passed away. I am the only one left at home. The reason why he is called Jian is because his parents have only one request for him. Peace and joy for a lifetime. But parents. I have the blood of a warrior. Thinking of this, Yian suddenly stood up and began to jump lightly, relaxing his shoulders, deltoid muscles, and arms. It's almost time to warm up. He closed his eyes and walked to the 3,000-kilogram sandbag in front of him. Very heavy. But for a swordsman, it only takes one light sword to cut it off. As for the gun cultivator, it can be destroyed with just one poke. But in front of a boxing cultivator, it would take 10 years of fighting to defeat him. This is the difference between boxing cultivators and other professions. Thinking of this, Yian's muscles tensed up and he hit the boxing bag with a fierce uppercut. Boom! There was a muffled sound. The 3,000-kilogram sandbag began to shake gently. His father's words rang in his mind. Fist is not only a kind of power but also a kind of belief. This kind of belief is difficult to describe, but when you stand in front of your opponent, clench your fists and start to slide, you will definitely feel it. At this time, Yian punched hard. The sandbag swayed high and quickly hit Yian under the strong inertia. At the moment when he was about to hit Yian's face, Yian's figure turned slightly to one side, his head tilted, and he slipped and dodged. His black hair was also blown by the strong wind picked up by the sandbags. What does it feel like? Is it exciting? His father's words rang out again. It was his first time practicing with sandbags. Extreme dodge is very exciting. The breeze stirred up by the sandbag is a reward for successful dodge. Brother, I like to play exciting things. Yian smiled. He likes this feeling too. Then, the sandbag moved in the opposite direction. Yian didn't wait for the inertia to disappear, and punched out directly, colliding with the powerful inertia. Boom! The inertia of 3,000 pounds made Yian's arm muscles tremble. Does it hurt? But you hit me back, don't you feel good about it? Yian lowered his head and said to himself, it's great. Your grandpa taught me these words, didn't you see? Your grandpa and grandma are both boxers. Except for your mother, our Yi family are all boxers. Yian smiled. My Yi family has been boxing cultivators for generations, what do you want me to choose to change my profession? Nonsense. Yian roared angrily and punched hard, raising the sandbag high and hitting it directly to the ceiling. Then, the words his father had said that most impressed him came to mind. But now, I have to admit that no matter how enjoyable boxing is, the combat effectiveness of boxers is really not as good as other professions. This is like a rule set by God, a fate that all boxing cultivators cannot break. But aren't your fists used to break the mountain of fate? I believe that there must be some kind of talent or boxing technique that can bring the boxing profession to the top of the world. I've told this to many people, and they say I'm talking nonsense. The world doesn't have the kind of miracles you want. But I always believe that people who believe in miracles are as amazing as the miracles themselves. For example, me. His father's bright smile and his thumb pointing at him appeared in front of Yian's eyes. He closed his eyes tightly and smiled. In front of him was a huge sandbag that was about to hit with maximum inertia. This moment, the second talent rune in his body suddenly rotated. There was one thing he never told Li Tang. In fact, dreams are just my weakest talent. I am a born boxer. The other talent is the miracle that my father was waiting for. It is unique and has never been seen in the human world, so it cannot be measured and has no name. I call myself the Supreme Fist. Thinking of this, Yian's aura gathered like a storm, and a strong fisting intention suddenly rose from all over his body. The surging fist power was like highly boiling steam rising around Yian, making his whole body turn red. Then, all the steam condensed into one point, gathered in his palm, and hit the mountain of fate with the swing of his shoulders. Boom! There was a loud bang in the dark basement. Yian opened his eyes, and the thick sweat on his body was covered with the heavy sand that exploded in the sandbag. But he didn't look down at the messy ground, but looked straight at the wall in front of him. Under the family portrait, what was solid was the wall, and a deep pit appeared. In the center was a fist mark, which fit perfectly with Yian's fist. Episode 3, Yian's True Identity. After training, Yian took a shower and returned to the room. He looked up at the red calendar hanging on the bedside and raised his eyebrows. The day after tomorrow is my 18th birthday. Unfortunately, now I am the only one left in this family. He suddenly walked into the bedroom next door. In the mottled wooden house, there is a thick layer of gray on the thin patterned sheets. He walked to the window and saw an extremely huge ancient tree in the backyard of the cabin. The diameter of the tree's roots was wider than Yian's home. This tree is so tall that it makes everyone passing by wonder how many years of wind, rain, and light this tree has seen. Yian was also curious when he was a child, wondering how there could be such a big tree in the world, and it happened to be at my house. Until half a year ago, my grandfather told Yian the story about this big tree before getting off the bus during the trip. This old tree and this wooden house have thousands of years of history. The story of Yi Tianwen, the best strategist in the world and the one who made the most contribution in the battle to ascend the throne, begins in this room. 10,000 years ago, the 7th-generation human king carried out talent reform at all costs and added a new level called infinite level. This reform has caused irreconcilable conflicts within the human race, because before the reform, SSS Plus was the strongest class in the world. People with 3S talents can overlook the entire human world. But now, there is an infinite level above them, taking away their resources and status. A civil unrest is coming. But fortunately, the 7th-generation king was at his peak and suppressed all this with forceful means. It wasn't until 300 years after the reform that some infinite classes who were given special missions finally grew up. They fulfilled the king's expectations of them and showed a more dominant performance on the battlefield than SSS Plus. People thought everything was going to be beautiful, but they never thought that the climax of the internal strife in the human world had just begun. The senior leaders of the human race realize that the infinite level is not a farce, they can really threaten our status. So the civil unrest started. The human race was forcibly divided into two factions. You can understand these by yourself later. In short, just 20 years after the civil strife began, the human race's vitality has been severely damaged, and its status in the heavens has plummeted. The ghost tribe and the demon tribe are eyeing each other and want to join forces to annex the human race. It is difficult for a human king to resist all this. But then, the human race suddenly became peaceful. We can't see the process, only the results, because there are no historical records of the last 50 years of civil strife in the human race, which were the bloodiest. Only those who experienced it know what happened in those years. At last, the king of 7 generations has won. No one dares to question the meaning of the existence of the infinite level anymore. After that, one after another infinite geniuses emerged, bringing the human race back to its peak. Time has verified the decisions of 7 generations of human kings. Needless to say, greatness. This is the antecedent. The seeds planted by the king of man thousands of years ago gradually sprouted and blossomed into brilliant flowers in the days to come. But it wasn't until 6,000 years that this seed finally bore sweet fruit. That fruit is Yi Tianwen, our ancestor. He's been clear about one thing since he was a kid. The reason why I can enjoy the best treatment is because I am an infinite level. If the human king had not made changes back then, this strange talent of dream would not have been noticed by others, and I would not have the best of everything. Yi Tianwen deeply loves the human world and admires the human king extremely. He grew up step by step and came to the side of the king of humans. At this moment, in the 10,000 years since the 7 generations of human kings have been in charge of the human race, the second epic story has begun. The first story is about talent reform. The second story is Gua, the human race ascends the throne. From 10,000 years ago to Yi Tianwen's appearance, for more than 6,000 years, the human world experienced civil strife, turmoil, peace, development, and finally was feared by the heavens. This world is a huge octagonal cage. The best boxers in this octagonal cage, ranked from high to low, are the world of gods, the world of the alliance of all living beings, the world of immortals, the world of ghosts, the world of monsters, the world of demons, and the world of ancient Shura. These 7 players at the top of the food chain share most of the resources in the world. More than 3,000 years ago, a player named Human World stood up and walked towards the 8th position. The division of wealth between 7 people has become the division of wealth among 8 people. Those 7 people are unhappy and want to fight off the 8th person. In front of the shining gold, any reason and words are pale and powerless. All we can rely on is our fists. So if the human world wants to take the throne, it must engage in battle. 1 against 7, everyone thought there was no chance of winning. Many people advise the king of men that it is best to hide the dragon in the abyss. But some people stood up and said that the chance for human flying dragons to rise in the sky is now. This person is Yi Tianwen. What happened next is written in your textbook. At Yi Tianwen's funeral, the human king placed the epic medal, which represents the highest glory in the human world, in Yi Tianwen's tomb and buried it with him. This is what I want to tell you. Yi Tianwen is our ancestor. What flows through you is the blood of the former best combat strategist in the world. He has the same talent as you'd dream. In the future, you will leave the small town and go to the big city. In that kind of place, you will be laughed at and discriminated against. But you don't need to feel inferior. Regardless of family background or honor, there are only a handful of people in the human world who can compare with you. If you don't discriminate against them, you are showing them the utmost tolerance. Then, I want to tell you the second thing, listen carefully. We all know that at the end of the Battle of the Throne, a traitor appeared in the human race. Yi Tianwen failed to see the human race ascending to the throne and was assassinated by that powerful traitor. The human king is angry, but there is nothing he can do about it. But fortunately, our ancestor was cautious enough. He knew that he was too insignificant in front of the seven realms, so he had already arranged his funeral and told future generations how to end the battle for the throne. His suicide note also clearly states how to deal with his children. Yi Tianwen had 2 sons. One inherited his wisdom and was named Yi Wuzi. The other inherited his bravery and was named Yi Huafei. The brave Yi Huafei didn't like the profession of combat strategist and wanted to become a martial artist, so he parted ways with the wise Yi Wuzi. He is not interested in the wealth left by his father. He only wants one share, which is this ancestral house. This is where we come from. Yi Wuzi took away most of the property and resources, grew up in Gaotian domain, and used Yi Tianwen's reputation to quickly expand his power. This is now the source of the Yi family in Gaotian domain. For so many years, our 2 veins have been at peace with each other, but the moment you discovered your talent and dream at the age of 12, they couldn't sit still. Because Yi Tianwen left a legacy in his suicide note. This legacy can only be opened by people with the same bloodline as him and the talent of dreaming. You're the one. So the Yi family of Gao Tianyu was anxious, and they came to Tianshui City. You were 12 years old then, and I let you go out to play. I am the only old man left in the family. They only told me a little bit. If you have a dream and don't give up your career as a war strategist, they will make you disappear. The higher a person stands, the more afraid he is of falling. You are also a descendant of Yi Tianwen, and you have the same talent as Yi Tianwen, and you will also receive his inheritance. So once you grow up, it will cause a devastating blow to the other Yi family. Your father should tell you all this. Unfortunately, Yen'er died early. I also want to wait until you are an adult before I can say these words to you. But Grandpa has no time anymore. This journey of life is coming to an end. Finally, Grandpa wants to tell you. Our Yi family has never been obsessed with passing on the family lineage. We all depend on fate. We never expected that it could be passed down to so many generations. So, don't let the threat of power shake your will, be brave and make the decision you think is right. If you fulfill your dream, Grandpa will be very happy. If you didn't make it to the end, Grandpa would be very happy because he could see Yen'er earlier. Episode 4, The Yi family attacks. Yin returned to the room and fell into a deep sleep. I don't know how long it took. Suddenly, his heart skipped a beat and he woke up suddenly. Looking up, he saw a man sitting at the desk in front of him. He is a man with a young face, but long hair. His eyes were gloomy like a snake scorpion, and he was wearing a luxurious black gold soft robe with dense formation runes on it. Yi-En made a rough calculation and found that there were 4 astronomical numbers written on this piece of clothing. And the way the other person raised his hands and feet showed a noble temperament. The moon has not yet set, and it is early morning. It's obviously summer, but the world is a bit cold. Yi-En confirmed that he was not dreaming. The other party is an uninvited guest. Yi-En sat up and frowned. Who are you? My name is Yi Xiaoshu. Yi Xiaoshu said calmly, strictly speaking, I am your younger brother. Yi-En was startled. The young master of the Yi family in Gaotianyu? At this time, Yi Xiaoshu said to himself, Yi-En. 18 years old. Gifted to dream. Student status, Tianshui High School. Not transferred yet. Grandma died when you were 7, your parents died in the war when you were 10, and Grandpa died 6 months ago, so you are an orphan. When you were 12 years old, you were tested to have unlimited talent. A strong man came to pick you up to practice in the High Heaven realm. But you didn't leave Tianshui City in order to accompany your grandfather on his final journey. From the age of 12 to 18, these 6 years are the golden years for a monk. You are hiding in this small town without receiving the best education and resources. This means that there is an insurmountable gap between you and people like us. This is probably because your grandfather told you long ago that if you want to become a strategic strategist, you will have no future. So you were obedient and gave up the treatment you deserved at the infinite level. But you are very strange. You made a deal with the principal of Tianshui High School. He gave you all the best resources he could get, and the price you had to pay was to fight for Tianshui in this year's Super High School League. Fighting for high school. Furthermore, you will play the role of a masked man, chasing down fugitives in the city. 3 years ago, you also entered the 67th war zone closest to here, and went into battle to kill the enemy for the sake of military exploits. You have accumulated a lot of military exploits over the years and exchanged a lot of resources, so your level is not low. That's a little puzzling to me. What do you want? When you're a waste, be thorough and don't make things difficult for everyone. Yi Xiaoshu stared at Yan like a poisonous snake, exuding a cold air. Yan sat up and said with a smile, "You're a little wrong." "Which point?" Yi Xiaoshu was confused. "You are my brother, so I am not an orphan." Hearing this, Yi Xiaoshu was stunned for a moment, then sneered and said, "You mean, you want to enter the Yi family in Gaotian domain? Interesting. This is also an excellent solution. After all, with the addition of you, a guy with the same talent as our ancestors, our Yi family's reputation will reach the next peak. You're smarter than I thought. But outsiders are outsiders." "Wait." Yan interrupted Yi Xiaoshu, stood up and said, "You are thinking too much. I didn't want to go to your Yi family. Just literally. If I still have family members alive, I am not considered an orphan." As Yan spoke, he walked to the kitchen, turned on the light, fired, turned his back to Yi Xiaoshu and asked, "I'm hungry, cook something. Do you want to eat?" Yi Xiaoshu stared at Yan, his mind suddenly a little confused. What is this guy doing? Cooking noodles? Add eggs? I'm threatening your life. You cook noodles here. Wrong. Yi Xiaoshu glanced at the stove and said calmly, "Don't play tricks. If you do anything rash, I will kill you immediately." Yan still didn't look back, and generously handed his back to Yi Xiaoshu, his posture relaxed and unsuspecting. "You won't kill me." Just after he finished speaking, Yan felt a cold wind blowing behind him. He saw Yi Xiaoshu appearing beside him, staring at his neck saying, "Do you think I dare not kill you?" Yan put down his chopsticks, turned to stare at Yi Xiaoshu and nodded indifferently, "Yes, you won't kill me. Stop threatening. Don't you dare kill me. Because there is a third person here. You're afraid of her. Come out. Want me to cook you a bowl of noodles too?" The next second, a cold voice sounded from the corner of the room. "Need not. I saw a woman wearing an ice blue dress walking out. She had bare feet, white wrists, eyes like crystal sapphires, and black hair shawl. He is tall, with a straight waist, and his figure under the robe should be excellent. But any man who sees her cannot be moved by his charming heart. Because her eyes were too cold, not like the eyes of a living person." Yi Xiaoshu looked ugly and said, "How did you know there was a third person?" Yi and chuckled and said, "You arrived in my room 5 minutes before I woke up. Do you know why I didn't wake up immediately, but 5 minutes later?" Yi Xiaoshu narrowed his eyes and said, "Why?" "Because she arrived in 5 minutes." Yin glanced at Ji Qing. Ji Qing stood dull and unresponsive. Yi Xiaoshu laughed and said, "You mean that I can't pose a threat to you at all? Are you afraid of her and that's why you woke up?" Yin nodded slightly and said, "Yes. It's ridiculous." Yi Xiaoshu said coldly, "I kill you, it's just a thought." "No, no, no." Yin shook his head and said, "It's not a matter of strength. It's the feeling." "Huh?" Yi Xiaoshu frowned. "You didn't release any murderous intent after you arrived at my house." Yin glanced around the room and said, "You even opened my refrigerator and didn't come to me immediately. Do you like ice cream?" With that said, Yin opened the freezer and said quietly, "I am the only one at home. I know how many popsicles there are. I don't understand what you were talking about." Yi Xiaoshu puffed up his chest and made a fierce look, wanting to look down at Yin and threaten Yin. But for some reason, Yin just looked at it indifferently, making himself feel like a paper tiger. Finally, he took a deep breath and said, "Yin. Our destiny is decided from birth. I am destined to be the next head of the Yi family in Gaotian domain, commanding an army of 3,000 tigers and wolves. And you are just an ordinary person in a small city. No matter how hard you try, you will never be able to turn over. If you can just be your little commoner with peace of mind, you will definitely survive. But if you still want to fly into the sky, you will definitely die. This is fate, you have no choice." Yin shook his head and said, "No, I have a choice. Episode 5, The Incomplete Girl, Choose to Seek Death? Yi Xiaoshu said with a puzzled face, I don't know why, you can be so carefree. Probably because you don't understand the energy of the Yi family. We will crush you to death like an ant. Yes. Yian nodded silently and turned to look at the girl in blue. She arrived 5 minutes after you. Why don't you take action in these 5 minutes? It's like squeezing me to death like an ant. I think your Yi family has paid a big price for this 5-minute time difference, right? What are you talking about? Yi Xiaoshu kept shaking his head to hide his inner feelings. Yian chuckled and said, I am a descendant of Yi Tianwen, and I have the same talent as him. Our ancestor could see all the enemy's actions on the battlefield. I can't even see through you. Less books. If you like it here, you can come here often in the future. Few books? Yi Xiaoshu's heart tightened and his pupils trembled slightly. Although it was just a fleeting moment, Yian could slow down the speed of everything 10 times in his eyes. This is one of the reasons why he has unparalleled powers of observation. Yian. Yi Xiaoshu whispered, this is our fate. You can treat us one at a time. Yian smiled and said, it means you don't want to be the eldest son of the Yi family, right? Yi Xiaoshu's heart trembled again. No wonder his father said he must kill Yian, otherwise he would shake the foundation of the Yi family. He is a natural strategist. Since I can't kill you today, it's useless for me to say more. Let's go. Yi Xiaoshu lowered his head and left. Yian watched him go away and said loudly, fate can be changed. Yi Xiaoshu did not stop, but walked straight away. It wasn't until he was far away from Yian's house that he couldn't help but look back. There was no darkness in those eyes, and they didn't look like poisonous snakes. He looked like a confused young man. Finally, he sighed and slowed his pace home. High Heaven Domain. In a pavilion and attic. Generalissimo Jishur and the head of the Yi family, Yi Wuzi, sat opposite each other. Suddenly, Yi Wuzi, who was holding the teacup, chuckled and said, can your daughter's disease still be cured? Jishur was tall, wearing a marshal's robe draped over his shoulders. He sat upright and said calmly, diseases that cannot be cured are life-threatening. Yi Wuzi drank the tea in one gulp and said, as expected of the Grand Marshal, his understanding of everything is deeper than that of ordinary people like us. I have something to ask the Grand Marshal. Say. Jishur nodded. Yi Wuzi smiled broadly and said, look at you, your temples are all gray, and the wounds left from the battle to ascend the throne are still lingering. Have you ever thought about supporting a junior to take over from you? At that time, you will have a lot of time to treat the hidden diseases in your body, and you can also find a way to solve your daughter's disease. How wonderful. Jishur looked at the child he raised in front of him and didn't understand why he became like this. But I have to say it. Tianwen, worthy of being your child. 3,000 years ago, he was just an ignorant child. 3,000 years later, he is my opponent sitting at the highest poker table. Tianwen, he wants to ride on my head, so I can't treat him as a child anymore. After being silent for a few seconds, Jishur nodded seriously and said, there are talents in the country, and it is better to be better than someone who is good at it. I am indeed getting old, and I happen to have taken a fancy to a good junior, who might be able to take over from me. Oh? Who? Yi Wuzi raised his eyebrows curiously. Yian. Jishur smiled. Hearing this answer, Yi Wuzi put down the teacup in his hand, half smiling. Finally, he stood up, bowed respectfully, and left the pavilion. At the same time, Yian's home. Yian turned to look at the girl in blue, and suddenly his expression froze. The ground under the girl's snow-white bare feet was frozen, and the whole room was filled with cold air. Here she doesn't need to turn on the air conditioner at all in the summer. You should collect your talents. Yian couldn't help but said, it's a bit cold. Hearing this, Jiqing looked startled, lowered her head and said, I'm sorry, I will do my best. She put away her talent, but it only made the ice smaller, not disappear. Can't you completely hide your talent? Yian brought the pot for cooking noodles in front of her and said, look at this noodles. I saw that the noodles and soup inside had frozen. I mean, let her take a look. But after the girl smelled it and hesitated for a while, a pair of ice crystal chopsticks appeared in her palms. Then she took the noodles out of the ice cubes and ate them. Yian was stunned. Why did you eat it? The girl made a confused sound and whispered, aren't you giving it to me? I'm just letting you take a look. Yes, really? The girl seemed to have her brain frozen, and her face was full of doubts. Yian was a little confused, and his eyes were sometimes wrong. I originally thought that the other party was a cold and proud lady. She came out with special effects of ice, so she didn't need to say a word to shock the whole audience. The result is this. Suddenly, Yian felt a little embarrassed, even blaming himself. Because he had heard that people with great talents often have some flaws. Even back then, there were many sons of gods, including Kiran's sons, whose birth talent runes had been condensed, and their majestic power was released uncontrollably, killing their own mothers. It seems that the girl in front of me is the same. Her talent was good, but her too powerful talent damaged her young body, causing her to have intellectual deficiencies. So everything you ate growing up was frozen? After thinking for a while, Ji-Ching said calmly, "Father can make food that won't freeze. But as soon as I take it into my mouth, it immediately turns to ice in my throat. So it's true that I didn't eat hot food. If my father forcibly heated my whole body, my life would be in danger." Yian asked in confusion, "Then what is your talent? Why does it have such big side effects?" Ji-Ching responded, "Ice Emperor." "Fuck." Yian exclaimed and said, "The strongest ice element in the human world?" Ji-Ching shook her head and said, "No. My father told me that my Ice Emperor is stronger than anything that has ever appeared in history. He said that I may be the strongest ice element in the world." Yian was shocked. Isn't this too pretentious? But it sounded natural, with no emotion in his voice, as if he was just describing a very ordinary thing. Then, Yian asked some more questions. Ji-Ching answered everything, like an emotionless answering robot. She told Yian her name. Yian asked again, "Why did you come to my house?" Ji-Ching's tone remained the same. "You are a descendant of Yi Tianwen. Yi Tianwen and my father are close friends of life and death. Yi Tianwen asked my father to take good care of his 2 children if he dies. So your neighbor across the street is from our family. Your lineage will be in my father's eyes for generations to come. But he blames himself for not protecting your grandfather. 6 years ago, your grandfather was beaten to pieces by people from the Yi family in Gaotian territory. Otherwise, given your grandfather's level, he would not have died so early. So he swore to protect you, so he sent me." Ji-Ching said blankly, and suddenly, she raised her head in confusion. Yian's eyes suddenly turned violent. He remembered his grandfather's last words. When he was 12 years old, that is, 6 years ago, the other party came to see his grandfather. Grandpa just took him by calmly. At that time, Yian felt a thump in his heart, feeling like there was a ghost. Because Grandpa is a martial artist in the 6th realm that is close to the 7th realm. His energy and blood are extremely strong. How could he die at the age of 80 or 90? As long as people in this realm are healthy, it is normal for them to live more than 150 years. Are you sure someone from their family really did something to my grandfather? Yian's eyes were fierce. Episode 6, Super High School League, sure. Ji-Ching nodded and said, "These are my father's original words." Yian only felt a surge of anger in his chest with nowhere to vent, and finally lowered his head and silently clenched his fists. He must make the Yi family pay the price. 1 code equals 1 code. As many years as you shorten my grandfather's life, I will shorten your life as many years as you do. Yian couldn't say these words, because he was too arrogant. But he will do it. Suddenly, Ji-Ching asked in confusion, "Why are you so excited all of a sudden?" Yian thought about Fong Fong's robot-like appearance, and thought about her own flaws, thinking that she might not have human emotions. "Just think I'm crazy." Yian replied. "You? You're not, I'm the one who's crazy." Ji-Ching pointed at herself seriously. "Why do you say that about yourself?" Yian wondered. Ji-Ching said, "When I was in elementary school, a classmate said that to me." Hearing this, Yian was suddenly startled. "Can you remember things from elementary school until now?" It seems that Ji-Ching is not a robot, she is also a human being, but she has some flaws. Yian frowned and said, "What happened next? How was this matter handled?" Ji-Ching said indifferently, "Later, his parents pulled him to apologize to me, and his parents even knelt down. My father said that as long as I apologized, I would feel better. But my heart doesn't feel anything." Hearing this, Yian pondered for a few seconds, and said, "It seems that we are all crazy." "Yeah." Ji-Ching nodded blankly. Suddenly, sleepiness swept over Yian. It was already midnight, and he couldn't bear it anymore, so he asked, "Then you will sleep next to me tonight?" "I don't have to sleep." Ji-Ching said, "I will stand by your side." "Ah?" Yian was confused, and said, "Aren't you sleepy?" "Sleepy." Ji-Ching nodded. "Then why don't you sleep?" "It's cold, I can't sleep." Ji-Ching said dully. "So you haven't slept since you were a child?" Yian was shocked. "Yes." Yian only felt his scalp numb and thought, is this a life that humans can live? From childhood to adulthood, for more than 10 years, I never closed my eyes and slept for a second. How did she survive until now? Finally, Yian walked into the bedroom, lay down on the bed, and covered himself with a quilt. Ji-Ching squatted in the corner and said nothing. Yian didn't think much and fell asleep. Although it's strange to have someone around me, luckily he has talent. Dreaming is dreaming, and dreaming requires sleep, so once the talent is turned on, no matter where Yian is, even in a crowded venue or in a violent storm, he can fall asleep instantly. The alarm clock rang the next day. Yian opened his eyes. The golden sunlight shines on the bed through the screen window, shining on Yian's bed and body. He lifted the quilt and sat up, only to see the girl in blue huddled in the shadow of the corner, head tilted and eyes closed, quiet and well-behaved. "You're awake?" Before Yian could speak, Ji-Ching opened her tired eyes. "You weren't asleep? Just meditate." Yian nodded and mobilized the elements in his body, brushed his teeth, washed, changed clothes, and finally sat on the sofa, picked up the TV station and watched the latest Tianyi Daily. Tianyi Academy is the strongest academy in the human world. They have a newspaper column that updates major events happening in Gaotian territory every week. This is the only way for ordinary people to understand the most powerful realm in the human world. The Yi family has expanded its territory again, reached some kind of agreement with the Zhou family, and has command authority over all theaters of the Second Great Wall. Kyles, the infinite genius of the demon clan, declared war on all the geniuses of the human race. 3 days later, he arrived at the border of the first theater of the Seventh Great Wall. As long as he was a player from the same realm, he would fight anyone who came. He would differentiate between superior and inferior. Life or death, but just one day, Yian's face changed slightly. Who will take the fight? There is nothing written in the back. It seems that the genius of the human race has not yet joined the battle. Then, the third news was related to Yian. It is the graduation season, and the Super High School Summer League is about to start. This time, the team battle is cancelled, and there will only be individual battles. A total of 4 war zones are launched in the 4 divine beast realms of the human race. The championship rewards for the 4 theaters are different from previous years. The Generalissimo decided that in addition to the basic resource rewards, the champion of this war zone will also receive a blessing from the mythical beast and an unlimited resource ticket. The third runner-up will receive 2 unlimited evolution fluids of their choice and 2 divine beast blessings. The runner-up will receive 3 more unlimited evolution fluids of their choice, as well as 3 blessings from mythical beasts. Champion, all basic rewards will be doubled, and you will receive the blessings of the 4 divine beasts and 4 unlimited resources. This is a league that benefits the common people. All children of aristocratic families who have lived in Gaotian territory since they were young are not allowed to participate. Yian's eyes suddenly lit up. Blessings from the 4 divine beasts. Within 10 years, physical strength, elemental strength, mental strength, and lifespan have all increased by 30%. This is simply a prize tailor-made for you. Because this 30% increase is completely enough to make up for the resource gap between Yian and Gaotianyu Tianjiao in the past 6 years, and it may even turn into an advantage. What excites him even more is the unlimited resources. Because this is the only gap between him and those proud men. The 3 professions, elementalist, martial artist, and mentalist, all require specific evolutionary fluids when they advance. Evolution fluid is divided into 5 grades. Excellent, outstanding, perfect, extraordinary, infinite. Using different levels of evolution fluid, the enhancement multiplier obtained when advancing will have a small difference, which may only be a few times 0.0. But when you add up a little, you make a big profit. If you have been using infinite-level evolutionary fluid since you were a child, your basic strength will be qualitatively different from those who use the extraordinary level when you grow to a later stage. Yian has been using extraordinary evolution fluid since he was a child. You can't buy the infinite level at all, and it's not because the human race doesn't have enough resources to make it. It's because making infinite-level evolutionary liquid depends on appearance, and the materials used to make it are the same as those of extraordinary level. Occasionally, with a flash of inspiration, it will transform into infinite-level liquid. You can make 100,000 copies of the extraordinary level, but you may not be able to make even 1 copy of the infinite level. More than 500 years ago, a genius came out of the Jin family, the most inhumane family in the human world. The family leader wanted to use money to overcome difficulties. In 1 year, he made 500,000 copies of extraordinary evolution fluid. Not a single copy came out. So this is a difficulty that cannot be overcome, and we can only leave it to fate. Now, Yian's 3 realms are just at the peak of the 3rd realm. He originally planned to spend all the battle achievements he had accumulated in the past 2 days and directly advance to the 4th realm. But looking at it now, I need to be steady first, and then break through after getting the infinite evolution fluid. Yian has already begun to look forward to it. In 2 days, all colleges and universities in the human world will graduate and registration will begin. The competition officially starts in a week. Must win the championship. Yian clenched his fists. Suddenly, he turned to look at Ji Qing, who was sitting quietly next to him, and asked, "Have you been using infinite evolution fluid since you were a child?" "What is the evolutionary fluid?" Ji Qing wondered. Yian was surprised, the other party didn't know? But he still explained, when entering the country, you need a liquid that emits colored light. "Have you ever used it?" Ji Qing shook her head and said, "I have never used the thing you mentioned. My father said I was different from others." Episode 7, I shouldn't have been born, what's different? Yian wondered. Ji Qing said quietly, "I don't need any resources to practice. As long as you live, your realm will naturally improve." Yian's pupil suddenly shrank and said, "What kind of incredible talent do you have?" Ji Qing remained calm and said, "But my entry speed is slower than others." "Then you can absorb resources and practice naturally at the same time, double the speed." Yian said quickly. Ji Qing shook her head and said, "I can't absorb it." Ah. Yian didn't know what to say. Suddenly, Ji Qing pointed to the information on Tianyi Daily and said, "Do you need this very much?" "Yes." Yian nodded seriously. "I'll ask my father to give it to you." Ji Qing took out his star platform and was about to contact the Grand Marshal. Yian quickly stopped him and said, "No need. Having you protect my safety is already an unexpected surprise for me. I can't ask for anything more from you, let alone such a valuable item." Ji Qing was puzzled and said, "Why waste effort when you can have it directly?" Yian said seriously, "My dad told me that everything in this world has a price. The most expensive thing is always free. He also said that hard work is the smallest price, it only requires time and energy. So, don't pay other unknown costs for what you can get by working hard." Oh. Ji Qing opened her round mouth, looking a little cute. "By the way," Yian asked, "how long do you want to stay with me?" Ji Qing replied, "My father didn't ask me to go back, so I stayed here." "Don't go to school either?" Yian wondered. "I only attended the 1st grade of elementary school for half a year, and I never went to school again. I stayed at home all the time." "Growing up, have you stayed at home alone?" "There is also a housekeeper, and father will come back sometimes, but most of the time he is alone." There was still no emotion in Ji Qing's voice, still more like a robot. After saying that, she sat still, like an ice sculpture. "There is no anxiety, no pressure, but there is also no happiness, and I am always suffering pain that no one can empathize with." Yian kept looking at Ji Qing, frowning, thinking, is this still a living person? People have self-awareness, their own thoughts, and emotions. But she has nothing, even every move she makes is obeying her father's instructions, like a. Correct. Yian finally found words that could accurately describe Ji Qing. There is no life in her body, she is just a moving blue doll. Suddenly, Yian raised his eyebrows. The reason why Ji Qing is like this is not because of any character flaws, but because of her talent. Because it's cold. Her body couldn't be heated because she said she would die if it heated up all over. But he might be able to make her consciousness not feel cold. Dream. I can pull her into a dream. In a dream, you can do anything. This only has to do with consciousness and should not harm the body. Yian immediately told Ji Qing his thoughts. After hearing this, Ji Qing quietly replied, "My father has many friends. They can both change the consciousness of others, however, they cannot contact my spiritual world. Because my spiritual world is also a land of ice. If I use force to break the ice, I will die." Hearing this, Yian frowned and sat on the sofa. Yes. She is the daughter of Generalissimo Jisher, who holds all the military power in the human world. Standing at that level, there is no shortage of super strong people around you. There are many talents at the same level as dreams. Same as dream effect, no. Yian was stunned for a moment. There is no talent equal to a dream. Throughout the ages, only 2 dreams have appeared in the human race, one is Yi Tianwen, and the other is himself. Today, dreams are unique gifts. Etc. Yian's eyes narrowed. In the battle to ascend the throne, Yi Tianwen was the first hero, and the Generalissimo was the second hero. Last night, Ji Qing also said that his father and his ancestors were close friends of life and death. How wonderful it is to develop this talent in the later stages. Only the still-living Generalissimo knows it best. If it was just to protect himself, there was no need to let his daughter come over. After all, any personal guard around the Generalissimo is a god-level powerhouse. Protecting yourself is as simple as eating and drinking. Therefore, there must be a deeper reason why the Generalissimo sent Ji Qing to him. Didn't your father say anything to you before you came to me? Ji Qing nodded and said, yes. Father told me that all the strong men in the human race are now helpless against my illness. The only thing he can think of is Yi Tianwen. If Yi Tianwen is still here, there will definitely be a way. But he is gone, but you appear, a person with the same talent as Yi Tianwen. You are my only hope for survival. Yian sat on the bench and thought for a while. Your father finally chose the person he trusted most, or talent. But I can tell you clearly that I don't know how to save you at all. Ji Qing lowered her head and said, it's okay. Yian asked again, what do you mean when you say that I am your only hope for survival? Ji Qing said to herself, there are still 2 years and 7 days. 10 years ago, my father asked an old gentleman to extend my life for another 10 years. These are the last 2 years. What? Yian's heart twitched and he stood up sharply. He originally thought that Ji Qing was just different from ordinary people. I never thought that Ji Qing was actually fighting death. What does 10 years of life mean? Meaning, she died 10 years ago? Yian asked the question again. Ji Qing said calmly, I didn't die 10 years ago. In fact, I shouldn't have been born. My talent runes were condensed before I was born. My mother hasn't waited until October, and the power in my body has already started to riot. My mother needs to suppress my strength while providing me with nutrition until October, because I have not yet become a complete fetus. Mother made it to that day. But she discovered that even if she gave birth to me, I wouldn't survive a day. So my mother thought of a way to exchange her life for 10 years of my life. I haven't met my mother. These words were all said by others when I was in my mother's womb. By the time I could open my eyes and see the world clearly, my mother had already passed away for a long time. Episode 8. Let me see your will and let fate hear your cry. Ji Qing calmly recounted a human tragedy. And she is the protagonist of this case. There was no wave in her voice from beginning to end, as if she was talking about something that had nothing to do with her and was of no importance. But Yian saw the boundless sadness as deep as the sea from the depths of her eyes. But the saddest thing is that she doesn't even have the ability to be sad. Yian lowered his head and took a breath. He asked, so why do you think you shouldn't have been born? Ji Qing said calmly, Tian Can. In the history of Gao Tian territory, there have been many people similar to me. They, like me, have great talents but also have broken bodies. Such a situation is called a natural disaster. Without exception, they all died young. Father said that the disease that cannot be cured is life. My fate was sealed from the beginning. No one can cure me, even if my parents are very big people, they can't beat the fate that has been doomed for a long time. Yian nodded and said, I can. Huh? Ji Qing looked up, her eyes moving slightly. What did you say? I said I can. Yian said, I can fight against the fate that has already been determined. Why? Ji Qing asked, without any provocation or ridicule, simply asking what is your confidence. Yian looked down at his fists and said, with this. Ji Qing was a little confused. Yian calmly narrated, my father told me. In this era of advanced technology and various magical abilities, fists appear to be very thin and fragile. The human fist is a power that has been abandoned long ago. But in the oldest time, when humans had nothing, our ancestors had only these fists to rely on. The beginning of the human story is not wind, fire, thunder, lightning, swords, guns, and sticks, it is this. Yian raised his fists and said with a smile, do our ancestors think that human beings can always be an inferior civilization and that this is our destiny? If that's what they thought, none of this would be happening now. Yian turned to look at the world outside the window. The sun was bright, tall towers were scattered around, and people were walking on both sides of the street. There were running teenagers, fathers chasing the teenagers with sticks, and grandfathers watching everything with a smile. Safe, happy, huge. There are countless cities like this in the human world today. We have long been standing on the highest poker table in the world, looking down at those races favored by God. These are not brought by fists, but they start from fists. Ji Qing looked straight at Yian's profile. The eyes that stared straight ahead shone with a light that made her heart heat up. She wanted to raise her head, but a huge unknown force appeared, crushing the expectations in her heart. She whispered, what does fist have to do with fate? At this time, a gust of breeze blew from the window, and Yian's thick black hair gently rose, and his firm voice echoed in the room with the wind. Fist is not only a kind of power, but also a kind of belief. This belief is called, I don't believe there is anything that cannot be broken with two fists. I never thought there was any destiny. And you? After the words fell, Yian turned to look at Ji Qing. The two looked at each other. Ji Qing suddenly remembered the words of the old man who extended his life 10 years ago. No one else can do much for you. Only you can decide your fate. The old man was very old, as if he was about to pass away, but his eyes were very similar to the young Yian at this moment. Although it was just a one-time acquaintance, Ji Qing always remembered her. It's as if that look has a magical power that makes people unable to forget it and even makes them want to follow it. Nothing can determine my fate, Ji Qing said to herself. This sentence seemed to have some kind of seductive magic, and her little face showed a trace of determination with difficulty. Yian smiled, looked at Ji Qing, and said, the beginning of everything requires firm will and belief. The most earthly and useful way is to shout. I want to hear you say, I want to live. Ji Qing's face suddenly changed, full of panic and confusion. It was as if the words live were poison and she couldn't hear them at all. Yian understood at a glance that her heart was already covered with endless negative emotions. I can't survive. I killed my parents. I am a useless burden. These negative emotions had accumulated for more than 10 years, and they were like a big mountain pressing hard on Ji Qing's head, causing her to lose the strength to stand up. In response, Yian only had more determined eyes. Say it. Ji Qing. Let me hear your voice. I saw Yian grabbing the wrists of Ji Qing's hands, trying to pull her out of the shadows into the morning sun. But he didn't exert any force, he just held it gently. Whether he could stand up in the end depended on Ji Qing herself. This moment. Ji Qing's body began to tremble slightly uncontrollably, her dilated pupils looked at the shadows on the ground, and the sadness and negative emotions of the past came towards her like a sea. In her world, there are thunder and lightning and dark clouds. But there was only a broken boat under her body. Facing the monster tsunami, she was frightened and trembling. At this time, a speedboat rushed from the waves at high speed. The young man on the speedboat has a firm gaze, and is the only light in this world. He held out his hands and grabbed himself, telling her to go. Walk? Where can I go? Ji Qing looked around. There is no other shore to this vast ocean, only endless thunder and black waves. Where can we go? At this time, Yian shouted in the waves, your mother used her own life to prolong your life for 10 years. Your father paid an unimaginable price and gave you another 10 years of life. They want you to live and see the beauty of everything in this world. You are so beautiful and you are so qualified to live. No God can decide your fate. Ji Qing, stay alive. Did you hear my voice? The sound of the surging waves and Yian's shouts undulated in Ji Qing's ears like a duet. The shaking of her body became more violent. She looked up at Yian and asked, why are you helping me? Yian's eyes were like flames, and he shouted firmly, because you want to live. And my gift is dreams, this moment. Ji Qing's eyes were in a trance. It was as if the person standing in front of him was not a young boy, but a son. That ice, enough to freeze the world, begins to melt. A strong impulse arose in Ji Qing's heart. My dream, I want to live. Her frozen body seemed to have gained strength. Every time she took a step forward, there would be the sound of countless ice cubes breaking inside her body. There was a look of pain on her little face, and she whispered, I want to live. The tsunami is coming. Yian yelled, louder. I want to live. Ji Qing's voice rose slightly, but she was still instantly drowned by the waves. Yian laughed, not enough. Louder, let fate hear your voice. Make him afraid. Ji Qing took a deep breath and shouted for the first time in her life. I want to live. The girl cries for her life. The sound echoed for 9 days. In an instant. The darkness recedes, the sea calms, and the thunder extinguishes. Gao Tianyu. The general, who was kneeling in front of his ancestors with his head bowed in prayer, suddenly raised his head. I saw a crack in the life tablet hanging on the statue and belonging to Ji Qing. This means that her life has officially entered an irreversible countdown. But there is a permanently frozen ice bead on the other side of the nameplate. This is what Mr. Tianming gave himself 10 years ago. The ice beads represent the ice that seals Ji Qing's soul. If the ice beads begin to break, it means that your daughter has officially begun to fight against fate. In the process, there will definitely be cracks in her life card. This is not surprising. To fight against fate, there is no other way but to fight hard. As long as the ice beads break faster than the life cards, you can win. 18 years. Things finally took a turn for the better. Hope has arrived. The Generalissimo clenched his iron fist tightly, closed his eyes, and raised his head. He fought against the devil for 3,000 years and shed endless blood without shedding a single tear. But at this moment, 2 lines of tears fell from the corners of the eyes of the tough-minded man. He screamed for his daughter in his heart. We must win. Episode 9, Heating Up, Yi An's Home. Ji Qing has stepped out of the shadows and stands with Yi An under the rising sun. There was bravery in her eyes, but there was also fear. The two emotions were colliding fiercely, but as long as she held Yi An's hand tightly, her inner emotions would relax a little. At this time, Yi An touched Ji Qing's forehead and frowned slightly. A temperature of almost 10 degrees. This was already outrageous, not at all the temperature of a living person, but the scary thing was that this temperature was much higher than she had been before. At first, Ji Qing's temperature should be around 0 degrees. This time it was 10 degrees higher, her face was no longer so cold, and she had a hint of popularity. How do you feel now? Yi An asked seriously. Ji Qing lowered her head and whispered, it doesn't feel that cold. Will it feel better? Yes. The voice was soft and waxy, which actually sounded pleasant. However, Yi An is a straight man and has no such thoughts. He is thinking that maybe the first step to save Ji Qing is to raise her body temperature and then control it around normal temperature. I have an idea. Huh? Ji Qing raised her head and raised her eyebrows. A glint appeared in Yi An's eyes, and he said, practice boxing with me. Although Ji Qing didn't know what boxing training was, she didn't hesitate and nodded and said okay. Then, Yi An took Ji Qing into the basement. Ji Qing breathed a sigh of relief. In fact, she was not very comfortable standing in the sun just now, because she had not seen light for many years and was afraid of light. There was no light in the basement, and she liked the environment. Then, Yi An took off his shirt without hesitation, jumped twice on the spot to warm up, and said to Ji Qing, you learn my moves. Ji Qing nodded slightly and immediately took off her blue dress. Yi An saw this move and said quickly, you don't need to learn this. Oh. Ji Qing nodded. Then, she clumsily began to imitate Yi An's movements, jumping slightly. How does it feel? Yi An asked. Ji Qing shook her head and said, I don't feel anything. It's okay. Yi An smiled and said, it will be there in a while. The two were warming up and chatting. Yi An's beating was getting bigger and bigger, and he began to pan and shake quickly from side to side. From time to time, he turned his head to look at Ji Qing, and surprisingly found that the other party could keep up with his speed. The most important thing is that the posture and posture are completely consistent. Have you ever practiced boxing? Yi An couldn't help but ask. No. Ji Qing shook her head. Yi An was helpless, maybe this was the real genius. Next. Yi An began to show Ji Qing how to punch, hitting the sandbag lightly. The sandbag standing by Ji Qing also followed the same example. The first punch was thrown. Kakaka. The sandbags froze on the spot. Yi An just wanted to complain, but then he thought about it, it didn't matter, and said, then keep punching and see if you can burst the sandbag. But Ji Qing's little fist had no strength at all. At this time, Yi An punched out hard, shaking the sandbag violently. Can you? Ji Qing had no expression on her face and punched out. No shaking. But she didn't say no, nor did she stop her movements and imitate Yi An, but she punched again. Seeing that the sandbag still didn't move, Ji Qing frowned slightly, seeming a little unhappy. Then, she used all her strength to punch. The sandbag still only shook slightly, not at all like Yi An's large shaking effect. The important thing is that Ji Qing's eyes are no longer so cloudy and are more focused, staring at the sandbag, with a little anger filling her body. Yi An looked at this scene, not only did he not panic, but he was also a little happy. Anger is at least an emotion. If Ji Qing wants to be a human being, she must first have 7 emotions and 6 desires. A few minutes later, Yi An confirmed that Ji Qing was on top. She didn't use the elements, but used pure power to punch one punch after another. Her strength became stronger and stronger, and her eyes became more solid. She looked at the unbeatable sandbag and felt unconvinced. At this time, she used all her strength and punched out hard. The huge sandbag finally swung high and hit her straight again. Yi An didn't stop him. The next second, his expression suddenly changed. Boom! Ji Qing's slender body was directly hit by the sandbag and fell to the ground. The hem of her blue skirt was crumpled into a ball, revealing 2 white patches. Yanqing doesn't think so, right? Even if she used the elements slightly, she wouldn't be like this. Are you okay? He stepped forward. Ji-Qing stood up quickly, with a gloomy expression on her face. Fine. She didn't look at Yan and walked towards the sandbag again, her steps a little heavy. Yan chose to wait and see what happened, practicing his boxing and thinking at the same time. Ji-Qing has emotions, but they are very weak and need to be stimulated. Moreover, the higher her body temperature, the more vitality she has. But the question is, will this really make her feel better? I still remember Ji-Qing said that if her whole body heats up, her life will be in danger. Thinking about it. Sudden. Boom. A loud noise. Yan turned his head sharply and saw Ji-Qing's mouth turned up slightly in amusement beside him, her eyes pointing straight ahead. The sandbag in front of her had exploded, and she gasped violently, and finally seemed to snort softly. I'm done. Ji-Qing turned to look at Yan and said calmly, it's not difficult. These words were no longer as cold as before. Yan's slow-moving eyes could clearly see that Ji-Qing was a little proud, even a little proud. Yan smiled and said, it doesn't matter whether it's difficult or not. What's important is how do you feel about yourself now? Me? It doesn't seem so cold anymore. Ji-Qing blinked her big eyes, and a very weak smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. A little more comfortable. Yan, are there any more sandbags? Yes. The most indispensable thing in our family is sandbags. Yan waved his hand and quickly took out 10 sandbags from the warehouse. 500 caddies, 1,000 caddies, 1,500 caddies, beat slowly. Ji-Qing nodded silently. Yan suddenly said, don't you have any martial arts skills? Yes. Ji-Qing nodded and said, my ice will freeze my body and spiritual world. The longer time goes by, the stronger my ice becomes. If my body and spiritual world are not strong enough, I will be completely frozen to death. Yan raised his eyebrows and said, so this is the cause of your illness? As long as your physical and spiritual realm are stronger than your ice, you won't be cold? No, that's just a symptom. Ji-Qing said quietly, my father told me that the cause of the disease lies in the soul. My soul is frozen. Yan nodded silently. The soul is too high-end and he can't even touch it yet. But he could see that Ji-Qing's vitality was getting stronger and stronger at this time. Then. She continued to punch, her movements were extremely standard, exactly the same as Yan. At this time, Yan discovered that Ji-Qing's physical realm was actually higher than his own, the early stage of the 4th realm. But her strength is only slightly greater than ordinary people. This is so abnormal. Yan continued to observe. As Ji-Qing punched hard, the temperature inside her body increased at an extremely slow rate, and her strength gradually increased. This made Yan suddenly realize. He could exercise his endurance in dreams, so he once tried to create a world of ice. When the whole body is frozen, the person can't use any strength at all. This is the reason why Ji-Qing is weak. She is too cold. You must work very hard to cultivate your body in order to have the strength of a normal person. Episode 10, I would rather do nothing than make a mistake. There are 9 realms in the 3 major aspects of Taoism. Generally called the lower 3 realms, the middle 3 realms, and the upper 3 realms. Each realm has its own name. For example, the 4th level of martial arts is called Feitian, which means that after a martial artist reaches this level, he can fight in the air. The 5th level is Ling Yun, and you can fly to the clouds at this time. They are all very nice names, but for infinite levels like Yan and Ji-Qing, they are collectively called the 4th realm and the 5th realm. Because, in the eyes of infinite level geniuses, the lower 3 realms and the middle 3 realms are just transitions. After the talent runes were fully formed at the age of 12, everyone began to practice Taoism. They did not learn skills or practice weapons, but only did one thing, rushing to the realm. There is a common sense in cultivating Taoism. The younger you are, the faster your level will improve. The human world will devote a large amount of resources to the infinite level so that they can reach the upper 3 realms as quickly as possible. Under normal circumstances, the infinite level will reach the 7th level around the age of 27. Only then will everyone start to improve their overall combat effectiveness and talk about the name of the realm. Before that, everyone only rushed to the realm. Yan is currently at the peak of the 3rd level of the 3 realms, which sounds nice, but in fact, he is already out of touch with the other infinite levels. Yi Xiaoshu's solo spiritual practice is now in the late 4th realm, a level higher than that of Yan. But Yan was not in a hurry. Because the dream is a late-stage talent. Now that he can cultivate his physical body in dreams, he will definitely be able to improve his realm in dreams in the future. The flow of time in dreams is 10 times slower than reality. The supreme fist is Yian's confidence in fighting. The dream is that Yian's progress is slower than that of his peers without any panic. The three fellow practitioners gave Yian the confidence to fear any enemy. In the blink of an eye, the morning passed. Not only was Jiqing not tired, she was becoming more serious and focused. She started to look excited, and seemed to have fallen in love with the sandbag. From 500 kilograms to now, she had just broken the 1,000 kilogram weight, and now she was preparing to break the 1,500 kilogram weight. Suddenly, Jiqing put down her fists, frowned slightly, and said to herself, "No wonder you don't wear any clothes. It's a bit difficult to act in this outfit." After saying that, she was about to take off her skirt. Yian was eating next to him. When he saw this scene, he quickly said, "What's wrong with you?" Jiqing said it was uncomfortable to put on clothes. Yian couldn't help but swallowed and said, "Don't worry, I'll find you a set of loose clothes to wear." "Wouldn't it be better if I didn't wear it?" Jiqing wondered. "Didn't your father tell you that girls can't take off their clothes casually?" Yian asked. "No." Jiqing shook her head. "Didn't anyone else tell you?" "Others?" Jiqing frowned and said, "I haven't seen anyone else." Yian couldn't help but ask, "You only went to elementary school for half a year since you were a child? The rest of the time you had no contact with the outside world?" "No." Jiqing shook her head. "Not at all?" "Yes." Jiqing nodded obediently. Yian was puzzled. What is this? Does she really have no common sense at all? Then what do you usually do at home? Days. 8 years? From small to large. Isn't it boring? Boring, but it hurts and I don't want to move. Didn't your father teach you anything? No, my father is very busy and is away most of the time. When he does appear, he will only take me to see a doctor. Okay. Yian said to Jiqing seriously, "Anyway, you can't take off your clothes casually. You can't show your body to others casually. This is called privacy. It can only be done in private." Jiqing nodded silently and said, "But this is in private now, there are no outsiders around." After saying that, she looked around. After hearing this, Yian looked at Jiqing's innocent eyes, and his heart suddenly trembled. Because he has been an orphan since half a year ago. He is the kind of person who will not have a funeral for him when he dies. Suddenly, Yian smiled. "Thanks." "Thank you for what?" "It's nothing." Yian shook his head and said, "Anyway, you are with me, so just listen to me." "Oh." Yian said, "Practice yourself first. Don't take off your clothes casually. I'll go upstairs and get you a set." After saying that, Yian left the basement and took a set of loose sweatpants from his room. Jiqing is not short and should not be too big. But I still have to buy her a set of women's sportswear. He walked downstairs with the clothes, quickly clicked on the star platform in his hand, and opened the women's sportswear interface. First, select the size, buy 3 of different colors, place the order, and complete. At this time, Yian was going down the stairs. Sudden. He smelled blood. Yian's pupils suddenly shrank and he quickened his pace. When I returned to the basement, I saw Jiqing sitting obediently on a chair, wiping the blood from the corners of her mouth and clothes. The silent basement was filled with the smell of blood. Yian hurriedly put his clothes aside and asked, "Are you okay?" Jiqing shook her head and said, "This happens when the body temperature is high." Hearing this, Yian's face turned a little ugly. I originally thought that practicing boxing would be good for Jiqing, but I didn't expect that things would turn out like this. At this time, after Jiqing wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth, she stood up and took off her long skirt without hesitation. Too fast. Yian didn't have time to stop him, so he could only turn his head away. A few seconds later, Jiqing asked doubtfully, "Yian, what's wrong with you?" At this moment, the angels and demons in Yian's mind were at war. "Turn around." "Still don't turn around?" Couldn't help it. He turned his head with difficulty. Suddenly stunned. Jiqing has already put on the sportswear she prepared for him. What's wrong? Jiqing's face was full of confusion. She didn't understand why Yian suddenly became nervous. He turned his back to her and was still a little nervous. Was there an enemy over there? Yian quickly shook his head and said, "It's okay." Jiqing nodded silently and muttered to herself, "Crazy, yes. Both she and Yian are insane, so it's normal for them to do strange things." Yian raised his eyebrows, wondering why he was scolded. Then, Jiqing shook her body and said, "Thank you Yian, this dress is very comfortable." She then faced the sandbag. Yian quickly said, "What are you doing? What's wrong with boxing training?" Ji-Ching asked doubtfully. You vomited blood. Oh. Ji-Ching looked at the sandbag and said with her back to Yan, my father also told me that vomiting blood means that my condition has worsened. But you told me before that you're going to die anyway, so you might as well do something and maybe survive. I like this idea. I also like to practice boxing. After saying that, Ji-Ching punched the sandbag.